Lucas Grant was a man who seemed to have it all: wealth, fame, and the kind of power that made people lower their voices when he entered the room. At only 32, he was the owner of several tech companies, luxury hotels, and a chain of restaurants that stretched across multiple countries. People admired him, envied him, and some even feared him. To the world, he was a symbol of success. But behind the carefully crafted image of a confident billionaire was a man who carried a quiet loneliness. It was a cold evening, and the city lights glowed against the dark sky, like stars scattered on the ground. Lucas sat in the back seat of his sleek black Rolls-Royce, staring out the window as his driver made his way through the busy streets. The car's leather interior smelled faintly of cologne and success, but Lucas barely noticed. His mind was elsewhere. He had spent the entire day in boardrooms, negotiating deals worth millions, answering endless calls, and reading financial reports. It was exhausting, not physically, but emotionally. His life had become a cycle of work, meetings, and more work. There were no warm dinners at home waiting for him, no one to ask how his day went, no laughter to fill the silence. The emptiness of his mansion was something he tried not to think about. Tonight, however, Lucas decided to do something different. He wanted a quiet evening, a moment of normalcy. No private chefs, no business partners, no paparazzi snapping photos of him at a gala. Just a simple dinner at one of his favorite restaurants in the city. He asked his driver to take him to La Belle Maison, a place known for its intimate atmosphere, soft lighting, and exquisite food. As Lucas stepped out of the car, the cold breeze brushed against his perfectly tailored navy suit. He buttoned his coat and walked toward the entrance with his usual confidence. People at the entrance whispered as they recognized him, but he paid no attention. Being the center of attention was nothing new for him. Inside, the restaurant was warm and inviting. Soft jazz played in the background, and the golden glow of chandeliers gave the room a romantic charm. Couples sat at candlelit tables, clinking glasses of wine, sharing quiet conversations. For a moment, Lucas felt like an outsider looking in. Everyone seemed to have someone. The maitre d' greeted him immediately. "Good evening, Mr. Grant. We have your table ready." Lucas nodded and followed him to a corner table near the window. It was a perfect spot, private but with a view of the city outside. As he sat down, he loosened his ties slightly and took a deep breath. For the first time that day, he allowed himself to relax. He opened the menu, though he already knew what he wanted. It wasn't really about the food tonight. It was about the feeling of being just another man having dinner, not a billionaire under constant scrutiny. As he waited for his order, Lucas glanced around the restaurant. He noticed an elderly couple sitting nearby, holding hands across the table, smiling at each other like teenagers. He noticed a young family, a father cutting food into small pieces for his toddler, while the mother laughed softly. And then, as he looked down at his empty table, he felt that familiar sting in his chest. He hadn't always been this alone. Once upon a time, Lucas had someone sitting across from him. Her name was Emily. She was the love of his life, or at least she had been. They had met years ago when Lucas was still an ambitious young man with nothing but dreams. Emily had believed in him when no one else did. She supported him when he was broke, celebrated his smallest victories, and held him through his darkest failures. But as Lucas's empire grew, so did the distance between them. He was always busy, always traveling, always chasing the next big deal. Arguments became frequent, dinners together became rare, and the warmth they once shared slowly turned into cold silence. One day, Emily packed her bags and left. That was 3 years ago. Lucas had thrown himself into his work after that, telling himself he didn't need anyone. But deep down, he knew he had lost more than just a wife. He had lost the only person who truly knew him. Not the billionaire, not the businessman, but Lucas, the man. As he sipped his glass of water, Lucas tried to push those memories away. Tonight was supposed to be peaceful. No past, no regrets, just dinner. But fate had other plans. Lucas had just placed his order when the evening's calm was shattered. It started with a loud crash from the kitchen. The sound of metal pans clattering against the floor echoed to the restaurant, making several diners turn their heads. Lucas glanced up briefly, assuming it was a simple accident. But something about the muffled voices and hurried footsteps told him it was more than that. Then came a scream. A woman's cry, sharp, pain, and filled with panic, tore through the restaurant's soft music like a blade. The air seemed to freeze. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Forks were put down. Everyone's attention turned toward the kitchen entrance. Lucas's chest tightened. Something about that scream struck him deep, like he had heard it before, not the sound, but the pain in it. The kitchen doors burst open, and a young waitress stumbled out, tears streaming down her face. Her hands were shaking as she cried, "Help! Someone's hurt badly." Before anyone could react, another figure appeared, a woman clutching her arm, staggering, her clothes stained with something dark and glistening. Steam still rose from the fabric. Hot oil. Lucas's eyes widened. He pushed his chair back and stood up so quickly that it scraped loudly against the floor. The woman took 2 unsteady steps into the dining area before collapsing to her knees. Diners gasped. Some stood from their seats, unsure what to do, and then Lucas saw her face. Time stopped. The world around him seemed to blur. The sound of whispers, the clinking of glasses, the restaurant's soft music. Everything faded except the sight of the woman on the floor. Her face was pale with pain, her hair messy, her lips trembling as she bit back a scream. It was Emily, his Emily, the woman he had once shared a home with, the woman he had loved more than life itself, the woman he had let slip away. Lucas's breath caught in his throat. For a moment, he couldn't move. His mind refused to believe it. That after 3 long years of silence, after nights spent wondering where she was, if she was happy, if she had found someone else, here she was, just a few feet away, writhing in pain on the restaurant floor. And she was hurt, badly hurt. Lucas's body finally reacted before his mind could catch up. He rushed forward, his heart pounding like a war drum. "Call an ambulance," he barked at the staff, his voice sharp with authority. People scrambled into action. He knelt beside Emily, his expensive suit forgotten, his image as a billionaire completely stripped away. All that remained was a man terrified for the woman he still loved. "Emily," he whispered, his voice shaking. "It's me, Lucas. Look at me." Her eyes fluttered open, dazed with pain. For a split second, recognition flickered in them. But the pain quickly took over. She winced and tried to pull her arm away, but Lucas gently held her still, afraid she might hurt herself more. The smell of burned oil lingered in the air, and Lucas felt a rush of anger at whoever had let this happen. But anger could wait. Emily needed him now. "Get me towels. Ice. Something cold," he ordered. The staff scrambled to obey, bringing wet cloths and bowls of ice. Lucas carefully pressed a cool cloth to Emily's burned arm, murmuring reassurances as he worked. "You're okay. I've got you. Just breathe." She let out a small sob and buried her face against his chest as he supported her. Lucas could feel her shaking. He held her tighter, shielding her from the stares of curious onlookers. For a man who spent years building walls around his heart, this moment broke them all down in seconds. Memories came rushing back like a tidal wave. The first time he had taken her out to dinner, the night he had proposed under the stars, the morning she used to make him coffee and tease him about his messy hair. And then the fights, the slammed doors, the night she left. And now here they were, fate bringing them together in the most unexpected, painful way. When the ambulance finally arrived, Lucas refused to let anyone else carry her. He lifted Emily carefully into his arms, ignoring the heat from her burned skin pressing against him. She was lighter than he remembered, almost fragile. As he walked out of the restaurant, people whispered and stared, phones discreetly recording the billionaire carrying an injured woman out of the building. Lucas didn't care. He didn't even hear them. All he could hear was the sound of Emily's breathing against his chest. Shallow, shaky, but alive. In that moment, Lucas silently made himself a promise. He didn't know what the future held, or if Emily would ever forgive him, or if she even wanted him back in her life. But he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to lose her again. Not like this. Not ever. The flashing red and blue lights of the ambulance reflected against the wet pavement as Lucas gently helped the paramedics place Emily on the stretcher. He never let go of her hand, not even for a moment. "Sir, we need space to work," one of the paramedics said politely, but Lucas shook his head. "I'm coming with her," he said firmly, leaving no room for argument. The paramedic exchanged a quick look with his partner before nodding. Lucas climbed into the back of the ambulance, his tall frame taking up more space than there really was. But he didn't care. His other hand rested protectively on Emily's shoulder as the vehicle's door slammed shut. The ride to the hospital was a blur of sirens and flashing lights. Lucas could hear the paramedics talking in low voices, discussing the severity of the burns. 3rd degree? Maybe 2nd. Lucas clenched his jaw. His world, a world full of billion-dollar deals and luxury, had shrunk to this tiny space, this one moment, this one woman lying on the stretcher, whimpering softly from pain. He found himself whispering to her, his voice unusually soft. "You're going to be okay, Emily. I won't let anything happen to you. I promise." Her eyes flickered open just slightly, enough to glance at him. She didn't speak, but a single tear rolled down her cheek. Lucas wiped it away gently with his thumb, feeling an ache in his chest he hadn't felt in years. When they reached the hospital, Lucas was the first one out of the ambulance. "Clear the way," he barked, his commanding voice making even hospital staff move faster. He stayed by Emily's side as they wheeled her through the brightly lit hallways. The smell of antiseptic filled his nose, and the constant beeping of machines made him restless. Finally, the doctors took her into the emergency room for immediate treatment. Lucas was told to wait outside. It was the longest wait of his life. He paced the hallway, ignoring the curious looks from people who recognized him. His phone buzzed with calls and messages, business partners, assistants, probably the press who had already seen the video from the restaurant. Lucas turned it off. None of it mattered right now. All that mattered was Emily. He sat down on one of the plastic chairs, leaned forward, and buried his face in his hands. For years, he had been a man in control of his businesses, of his time, of his life. But right now, he felt powerless. Money couldn't fix this. All he could do was wait. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Finally, a doctor walked out, still in scrubs. Lucas stood immediately. "She's stable," the doctor said, offering a reassuring smile. "The burns are serious, but we managed to treat them quickly. She'll be in some pain for a while, but she's out of danger." Lucas exhaled in relief, feeling tension drain from his body. "Can I see her?" "Yes, but keep it brief. She needs rest." Lucas followed the nurse down the corridor and into a small room. Emily was lying on the bed, her arm wrapped in bandages and 4 attached to her hand. She looked pale, exhausted, and heartbreakingly beautiful. For a moment, Lucas just stood there, watching her sleep. She looked so fragile, so unlike the strong, spirited woman he remembered. Then, as if sensing his presence, Emily slowly opened her eyes. Her gaze met his, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Emily broke the silence. "Lucas," she whispered, her voice hoarse. Lucas moved closer, pulling up a chair beside her bed. "I'm here," he said softly. "You're safe now." She blinked slowly, confusion and pain mixing in her expression. Why are you here?" Lucas hesitated. How could he explain it? How could he tell her that seeing her hurt had shaken him more than any business failure ever could? "Because I had to be," he said simply. "I couldn't just sit there and watch you suffer." Emily looked away, her jaw tightening. "You didn't have to do anything, Lucas. We're not anything anymore." Her words cut deep, but Lucas didn't flinch. "Maybe not, but I still care about you. I always did." Emily's eyes filled with tears, and she quickly looked away again. Caring wasn't enough back then. Lucas swallowed hard. He knew she was right. He had been so focused on building his empire that he had forgotten the woman who had been there from the start. And now, seeing her like this, he realized just how much he had lost. "I made mistakes," Lucas admitted quietly. "I let you down. But tonight, I can't explain it. Seeing you like that, it felt like losing you all over again. And I can't go through that twice." Emily said nothing for a moment. The room was quiet except for the soft beeping of the heart monitor. Then she finally spoke, her voice trembling. I didn't think I'd ever see you again. Lucas reached out and gently took her hand, careful not to disturb the four. Neither did I. But maybe this is fate giving us another chance. To talk. To, I don't know, make things right. Emily didn't pull her hand away, but she didn't hold his either. Her eyes searched his face, as if trying to decide if he meant it. You should go, she said softly. You've done enough. Thank you for helping me. Lucas didn't argue, but as he stood to leave, he leaned closer and said in a low voice, I'm not going anywhere, Emily. Not this time. And for the first time since their painful divorce, Emily's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. Lucas returned to hospital the next morning, dressed in a crisp black suit, but without the usual aura of an untouchable billionaire. This time, he wasn't there as a CEO or investor. He was there as a man who couldn't stop thinking about the woman lying in that hospital bed. When he walked into Emily's room, she was awake, quietly staring out the window. Morning sunlight spilled to the blinds, casting soft lines across her face. She looked tired, but stronger than the night before. Her gaze shifted when she heard him step in. For a moment, she didn't say anything, just studied him, as though trying to decide if this was real or just some cruel dream. You came back, she said finally, her tone calm but tinged with something he couldn't quite read. I said I wouldn't leave, Lucas replied, pulling up the same chair as yesterday and sitting beside her. How are you feeling? Sore, she admitted, her eyes falling on her bandaged arm. But the doctor said I should recover without any permanent damage. That's good, Lucas said softly. There was a pause, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Lucas leaned forward. Emily, I need to know, what were you doing working at that restaurant? I thought you'd moved out of the city after everything. Emily sighed and looked away. I did. I tried to start over. Lucas, after the divorce, I left everything behind and went to live with my mom. She wasn't doing well back then, and I thought maybe a quiet life would help me breathe again. Lucas's chest tightened. He remembered how close Emily had always been to her mother. She's sick, Emily continued, her voice quiet. She has a heart condition. The treatments have been expensive, and insurance barely covers anything. I've been working 2 jobs, the restaurant in the evenings and another during the day, just to keep up with the bills. Lucas felt something hot rise in his throat. Guilt, anger, helplessness all mixing together. The idea of Emily struggling, working herself to exhaustion just to take care of her sick mother, made him ache in a way no business failure ever had. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice low but intense. Emily gave a short, bitter laugh. Tell you? Lucas, we barely spoke after the divorce. You were too busy building your empire. Besides, she hesitated, I owe on your money. Lucas winced at her words, because he knew they were true. During their marriage, he had thrown money at problems instead of listening, instead of being present. This isn't about money, Lucas said firmly. This is about you, about your mother. Emily, you could have died last night. You shouldn't have to work yourself to the point where you end up burned and in a hospital bed. Emily's jaw tightened. And what do you expect me to do, Lucas? Just sit back and watch everything fall apart? I didn't have a choice. You do now, Lucas said, leaning closer. Let me help you. Emily shook her head. I can't just accept charity from you. That's not who I am. It's not charity, Lucas insisted. It's me making up for all the times I wasn't there when I should have been. Let me cover your medical bills. Let me help get your mother the best treatment available. You don't have to do this alone. Emily stared at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of insincerity. What she saw there made her look away quickly, blinking back tears. You still care, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Of course I do, Lucas replied without hesitation. I never stopped. For a long moment, there was silence. The only sound was the steady beep of the heart monitor. Finally, Emily spoke, her voice softer this time. I don't know if I can trust you, Lucas. Not yet, but... She swallowed hard. Thank you for being here. Thank you for helping me. Lucas reached out and gently covered her hand with his. I'm not asking you to trust me overnight. Just Let me try. Let me be here now, the way I should have been before. Emily didn't pull her hand away this time. Instead, she let it stay there, warm under his touch. And for Lucas, that small gesture was enough. It was a start, the first fragile bridge between their broken past and a possible future. Before leaving that day, Lucas made a quiet promise to himself. He would do whatever it took to make things right, not just by paying bills, but by showing Emily that he was willing to change. Because last night had made one thing painfully clear. He could lose everything else in the world and still survive. But losing Emily a second time would destroy him. Days turned into weeks, and Lucas made sure Emily never felt alone again. He visited the hospital every single day, bringing her fresh flowers and her favorite books, the kind she used to curl up with on rainy Sundays when they were still together. Emily at first kept her distance. She spoke politely, thanked him for his help, but there was always a wall in her tone. Lucas didn't push. He knew trust wasn't rebuilt overnight. Instead, he stayed consistent, letting his actions speak louder than his words. He personally handled her medical bills, ignoring her protests, and even arranged for a private nurse to make sure her burns healed properly. He did it quietly, not as a grand gesture, but as a way of saying, "I care. I'm here." When Emily was discharged, Lucas offered to drive her home. She hesitated, but finally agreed. On the drive, silence filled the car, but it wasn't the uncomfortable silence of strangers. It was a heavy, thoughtful silence of two people who had shared a past. When they reached her apartment, Lucas was struck by how small and modest it was. It wasn't bad, it was neat, clean, and warm, but far from the life she had once shared with him. Emily noticed his expression and said quietly, "This is what I could afford." Lucas didn't say anything, but inside his chest tightened. He realized how much she had sacrificed just to survive. Over the next few days, Lucas began helping Emily in small, subtle ways. He arranged a specialist appointment for her mother and personally ensured she got the best care available. He even paid off the remaining hospital debt in Emily's name, but made sure she didn't feel pitied. He simply handed her the receipt one day and said, "It's taken care of. You don't have to carry this burden anymore." Emily didn't thank him right away. She just looked at him with an unreadable expression, her lips pressed together. Later that night, though, she sent him a single text. "Emily, thank you for everything." Lucas stared at that message for a long time, a faint smile tugging at his lips. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was the first real crack in the wall she had built around herself. As the weeks passed, they began talking more. Not about the past. Not yet, but about ordinary things. Emily would share funny stories about her co-workers at the restaurant, and Lucas would tell her about the ridiculousness of high-powered business meetings. Slowly, the tension between them softened. One evening, Lucas showed up at her door with takeout from her favorite restaurant, the same one they used to go to when they were young and broke. Emily raised an eyebrow. "You remembered?" Lucas smiled. "I remember everything, Emily." They sat together at her small kitchen table, eating straight out of containers and laughing over old memories. It felt natural, easy, like stepping into a familiar rhythm they thought they had forgotten. But it wasn't just nostalgia driving Lucas. He was changing, truly changing. He had started leaving the office earlier, delegating more, even canceling some high-profile meetings just to spend time with Emily and her mother. For the first time in years, his life wasn't just about numbers and profits. One night, as Lucas was about to leave, Emily walked him to the door. She hesitated for a moment, then said softly, "You've been different lately." Lucas looked at her. "Different how?" "Calmer," she said. "Less cold. It's like you're actually here." Lucas, not just physically, but really here. Lucas's expression softened. "That's because I don't want to be anywhere else." Emily looked away, her heart racing. It had been a long time since anyone had made her feel this way. The turning point came a few weeks later. Emily invited Lucas to have dinner with her and her mother. It was a simple meal, nothing fancy, but as Lucas sat there, laughing and talking with him, he felt something shift inside him. For the first time in years, he felt like he was home. After dinner, as he was leaving, Emily walked him out. The night was quiet, the moonlight casting a soft glow over the street. "Lucas," she said, stopping him before he could get into his car. He turned to face her. "I don't know where we go from here," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm still angry at you for how things ended. But I can't deny that you've been there for me when I needed it most. And I can't deny that some part of me," she trailed off, searching for words, "still cares." Lucas stepped closer, his gaze steady on hers. "Emily, I'm not asking you to forget what happened. I'm just asking for a chance to prove that I can be the man you deserve. Not the man I used to be, but someone better." For a moment, they just stood there, the night air around them charged with unspoken feelings. Then Emily gave him the smallest of smiles, hesitant but real. "Maybe," she said softly, "we can try again, slowly." Lucas felt something warm bloom in his chest, a feeling he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Hope. He didn't kiss her, not yet. Instead, he nodded and said, "Slowly is fine, as long as it's with you." And for the first time since their painful divorce, Emily didn't look away. As Lucas drove home that night, he realized something. His wealth, his power, his entire empire, none of it had ever made him feel the way he felt tonight. Because tonight, he had something money could never buy, a second chance, and he wasn't going to waste it.